So imagine yourself like you're scrolling through your feed and then you eventually fall upon a meme that makes you wonder, why would I even find this self-deprecating humor about death so funny while you're actively laughing at it? Yeah. So in order to understand this concept of why we do things we tend to do, like laughing at humor about death, like laughing at meme about death, it is essential for us to put on a little hat of curiosity and knowledge and travel through the digital world to find the answers to the questions we seek. To witness, experience, or to even think about death is unpleasant, and yes, I'm aware it's an understatement because it complicates our already complex feelings and emotions as well as our lives. And yet, we find comfort in making fun of it. Why? Why do we find comfort in making fun of or laughing at something so tragic and grave? In order for us to understand all of this, we need to look at a few theories. Okay, I know theories are a bit hard to digest or like a bit hard to comprehend, but just bear with it because it is essential to know these theories in order to understand why we laugh at, why do we tend to humorize death. Alright, so just bear with me through the theories. So this is concept known as mortality salience. It basically means that we are aware that death is inevitable. This awareness that death is inevitable is known as mortality salience. So just remember this concept. So according to terror management theory, also known as TMT, we tend to protect ourselves from the anxiety related to mortality salience by using factors such as cultural worldview, close personal relationships, and self-esteem. So I need to elaborate on what all these three things mean one by one. Cultural worldview, according to Tom Pishinsky and Pelin Kesibir, is quote, are personally and culturally held assumptions and beliefs about the nature of existence. Cultural norms, moral values, and religious beliefs are among the key constituents of cultural worldviews which control anxiety by imbuing life with meaning, structure, and purpose. To simplify or to paraphrase what these two people said is that we may protect ourselves from the anxiety related to death by strengthening our personal and our cultural views because it gives us meaning, structure, and purpose to our lives. So close personal relationship, that is your caregiver, your romantic partner, and your close friends, all of these are your close personal relationships. That is very straightforward. So according to Pishinsky, when we have these close relationships and when we combine these close relationships along with like cultural worldviews and self-esteem, it tends to provide us with protection against the anxiety related to death. So the more we strengthen our bonds and the more we strengthen our cultural worldviews and self-esteem, it helps us to provide us against a protection against the anxiety related to death. Last factor is self-esteem, and according to like one component of TMT, which is the anxiety buffer hypothesis, self-esteem acts like a shield or buffer against the anxiety related to death. So what this means is that when we feel like we have a meaning to our lives or when we feel like our personal views are validated, it tends to increase our self-esteem. And this increase in self-esteem acts like a shield or buffer against the anxiety related to our own mortality or anxiety related to death. So I know that was a lot to take in, but like bear with me, the next two theories are much easier than the first one. So just please bear with me a little bit. So the next theory we'll be looking at is relief theory. So to simplify this entire concept of relief theory, it basically states that we tend to release our nervous energy through laughter. As simple as that. According to John Morreall, a good analogy is the way excess steam builds up in a steam boiler. These boilers are fitted with relief valves to vent excess pressure, and according to relief theory, laughter serves a similar function in the nervous system. So, in other words, I want to paraphrase his words, when we build up excess pressure in our system, laughter acts like a relief valve and releases this excess pressure when we laugh. It's as simple as that. Okay, so about this paper by E.N.E. Straus, this paper existed while I was doing my research as well as writing my script, but then when I started to do editing where I was taking screenshots of the paper which I studied in order to put in the video, the paper just no longer exists anymore. So just take what I'm about to say about the E.N.E. Straus's paper with like a grain of salt, because the evidence, the proof just no longer exists anymore, the reference just no longer exists. just take it with a grain of salt. I cannot take that particular part out of the video because it will ruin the entire context of the entire video. So I'm not editing it out. So just take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. According to Ian Straus, incongruity theory relies on the premise that in their daily lives, most people believe that the world is ordered. They believe that objects behave and interact with the other objects in a consistent manner, that actions have consistent results. We perceive humor and are amused when we are presented with an experience that is incongruous with what we understand to be the normal order of things. So, to paraphrase what he said, it basically means that we often tend to perceive our daily lives to be something that is ordered and consistent, and when we perceive something that is out of the ordinary, that is at least out of the norms, we tend to be amused by it. Ian Straus also says that incongruity theory is a subject-dependent theory of humor. Different people have different understandings of what constitutes the normal order. So an experience that seems humorously incongruous to one person might not seem so funny to another. It just means that if I find something which is out of the ordinary funny, it is not necessary that my friend also needs to find it funny. In fact, it also has the potential to even offend another person. So now that we have the theories out of the way, let's finally look at why do we humorize death. This type of humor where we make fun of something unpleasant is known as gallows humor and very famously known as dark humor. We often use this dark humor as like a defense mechanism to cope against our mortality or at least our reality of death. The thing is, this concept is not like a new one or anything. It has existed throughout history as an act of resistance by the oppressed. An example would be a quote from the paper by Zoe R. Potter. It goes like, during the Nazi invasion and occupation of Czechoslovakia, gallows humor was alive and thriving among Czechs who saw the country pillaged and their parents, children and neighbors sent to concentration camps. After spending 9 months in Czechoslovakia following the invasion, Oberlich found that a good joke changed pessimists to optimists and claims that gallows humor is an unmistakable index of good moral and of the spirit of resistance of the oppressed people. Thus, gallows humor created a space for itself among vulnerable people. So this example gives us a picture as to why we may find humor in something like so unpleasant and tragic, right? This example also can be correlated with anxiety buffer hypothesis because it proves that we may humorize something unpleasant in order to increase our self-esteem or at least our hope, and this increase in self-esteem or hope acts like a shield or buffer against the anxiety related to death. Hence, the anxiety related to death would decrease since they have humorized their situation. According to Mahat-Shamir and Kagan, there are 3 means by which humor buffers against the anxiety related to death. First is by it helps us to connect to our cultural worldviews. Second is by it provides us a means for inclusion in a group. And third is by it gives us a sense of control. Let me just elaborate what all of these 3 things mean. According to the author, when one's cultural worldview becomes ambiguous or unclear, humor helps them to reconnect with the cultural worldview because it often addresses the inconsistency between their reality and their personally held views. An example to this would be this meme addresses the inconsistency between our personally held views, that is the frustration against the other people, and the reality, that is the social norm that we aren't supposed to think of such things about other people. So when this meme addresses this inconsistency in a humorous fashion, it validates our personally or culturally held views, and hence it increases our self-esteem, which then acts as a shield or buffer against the anxiety related to death. Second factor is that humor may help us feel like we are part of a group. So let's say you see a meme that goes like this. So when you see a meme like this, you automatically confirm the existence of people with the same humor as you, or at least with a similar stressful event as you, that would encourage such thoughts. And this awareness simultaneously creates a sense of being a part of a group that understands you or your humor, and this again increases your self-esteem, which acts like a shield or buffers against the anxiety related to death. According to Zoe R. Potter again, a sense of in-group belonging is important because feeling like one is a part of the in-group is associated with lower levels of occupational stress and increased resiliency. So the last factor is that we may indulge in dark humor simply because it gives us a sense of control over something that is inevitable and uncontrollable. So basically, we may use or laugh at death just for us to hold on to the facade that we are at least partially able to control something that is not within our hands. By looking through the lens of relief theory as to why we may find humor in something such as death, it could be that when we look at dark humor or when we see dark humor, the initial negative reaction is then converted or released through laughter, which acts like a relief valve in releasing our pent up negative energy. I'm not really sure about the explanation or this theory, so I'm not going to put much emphasis on this one. The thing, because I personally think that it's not necessary that we laugh or even smile at something that we find amusing, so I personally don't think that this theory applies in much places. So again, I'm not going to put much emphasis on this one. The theory that I am sure of is incongruity theory, because it's not necessary that everyone in this world is like scared of death. For all I know, some people may not be using defense mechanism to in order to cope with anything in their life at all. They could just find dark humor funny or jokes about death funny simply because it deviates from something that is considered normal. A good example to this would be electric chair, electric chair. I give it to you, a brand new shocking sensation. Okay, to sum all of this up as to why we may find dark humor funny or specifically jokes about death funny, first, it could be because it helps us to boost our resilience by increasing our self-esteem. Second, it provides us a way to connect with our cultural worldview. Third is that it helps us to give a sense of being a part of a group. Fourth is that it gives us a sense of control over something that is uncontrollable. Fifth, it could be just that it releases our pent up anxiety through laughter. Again, I'm not really sure about that one. Last one, it could be just because it deviates from something that is considered normal. So now that we know why little brains get happy when it sees a meme about death, I personally think that it's truly fascinating how our minds perceive something so dreadful like death and turn it into something that we could make fun of. It's as if our minds are the biggest bullies of death, and to be honest, it is the only form of bullying I stand by, because it's better to laugh at our own struggles than to let the struggles consume us. Anyways, thank you for watching. Bye bye.